Hey, Footland, it's that time of the year. Fantasy football drafts, even better than Christmas because draft day is my Christmas. Your fantasy football drafts are impending, and you got to get ready for those with the Ultimate Draft Kit. That is our Christmas gift to you with all of our tier breakdowns. That's how we always recommend to draft. We're talking full stat projections across the NFL for all those offensive players. Risk ratings. We have video profiles on over 100 guys. I'm telling you, this Ultimate Draft Kit is overloaded with so much incredible information to get you ready for your fantasy football drafts. Check it out at ultimatedraftkit.com.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast, coming to you from the Play Draft Studios with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
Hey-o, welcome. Welcome in. Do a shimmy, do a shake. The Fantasy Footballers are back again.
Shimmy, shimmy, cocoa pop. Ice cream vanilla on top.
See, what listeners don't understand now with the podcast is because we're every day, we're doing these in the morning, which means Jason hasn't eaten pasta for lunch yet.
That's right. I'm fresh. My brain is with me. I can think. I can speak. It's incredible. I'm not asleep.
You've got your Foot Clan title T-shirt on.
Yes, sir. Won the Foot Clan Listener League last year. Got to represent. Hashtag Foot Clan title.
Thank you for all the entries to the Listener League. Again, I want to remind you, you can email those to listenerleague@fantasyfootballers.com. And the deadline for entry, which has been a often tweeted question to me over the last 24 hours, the deadline is going to be next Friday. So every entry we get before then, we'll consider, and then that'll be the deadline. We'll pick some people out. And
That would
we'll get
be
you
the
in
11th. That would be the
there you go.
The Terrell Pryor.
Yeah, the August Terrell Pryor. You see that catch?
Don't say you can't bring up Terrell Pryor because Pryor shut down Twitter.com. It exploded.
Yeah, I was telling the guys before the show I have TP11 in both of our main leagues that we're in together. And, that one catch, that just destines him for a fantasy superstar.
That's how it works, right? A camp catch.
I know.
Over some bad defense.
Look, we can say what we want about listening to the hype or not listening, but the key is listen to the hype about your own players that is positive, and then when the negative news about Andrew Luck comes out, what you do is you take your pointer fingers and you just jam them in your ears, and you don't listen to things like Andrew Luck pop, Andrew Luck pop.
So you're telling me that you were crying your tears over Andrew Luck, but you wiped him away with the TP?
Yeah, I wiped him.
I see what you did there, Mike. Well done. All right. And also, everything Andy just said was terrible advice. So make sure that you pay attention to all of the news.
I would draft Terrell Pryor, and I would
opinions.
draft Todd Gurley. I'm doubling down.
All right.
Okay, welcome in. We
Enough
have
Todd
the
Gurley.
NFC East breakdown on the show today, and a great quick question. We're talking fantasy football superpowers.
Ooh.
Yeah, so we'll get right into that. Follow us on Twitter at the FF Ballers. Check out jointhefoot.com. If you need a league to play in this year, maybe you're stuck in one of those old busted leagues with like three people that, auto draft and then they don't pay attention, and then the league's no fun because everybody's just fighting over the players they didn't take, and they're easy wins every week, and it's really boring. If you need a good league with good people, listeners from this show that will be both challenging and fun, we try to facilitate that. So go over to jointhefoot.com. We have the Foot Clan leagues over there, local leagues, online leagues. We just try to facilitate a place where good people can come together and create great leagues because we are all about you winning, and we are all about you enjoying every single week of the season. And so check that out at jointhefoot.com. All right, guys, like I said, what is your fantasy football superpower? That is the quick question of the day. What is your fantasy?
Personally.
Yeah, you personally, what's your fantasy superpower?
I can say right now I know what yours is. Yours, Andy, to kick it back to you, has to be trading. I mean, am I right or am I wrong?
Sure. Yeah, I would say that's my fantasy superpower. I crafted a trade for David Johnson yesterday.
That's ironic timing.
Good timing. I am certainly infatuated with trading.
You trade more than the rest of the league combined.
It just works with my brain.
It does.
I mean, people know that I'm kind of like the
Type A, just very
Sure. Control, freak, run the show, keep you guys from going like 16 hours long per episode.
Never.
And I love the 2-for-1 and the 3-for-1 trade. I feel like there is so much value to that type of trade because you don't, both sides don't really see the added value of having that extra roster spot, being able to utilize that on a free agent pickup. If I'm sending 2 players away and I'm getting one more talented player back,
You're always getting the best player.
You're always getting the best player. You get to sign somebody to fill that extra spot. And a lot of the times you can really meet the needs of your trading partner by offering 2 or 3 players. I mean, you look at them, you identify their weaknesses on their team, and you offer 2 puzzle pieces for those weaknesses, and you get back the best player. I love trading. It's definitely my sure, we'll go with that.
You're
superpower.
you're also relentless.
That's true.
Seriously. He was turned down on the David Johnson trade like 4 times. It's like, I got David Johnson. And what? He said no.
I'm honestly not saying that in a bad way. You're just I'm not I trade, but if a trade's not going somewhere, I shut it down. But you're like 5 trade offers a day.
I'll find a new way. It's become way more difficult since the podcast. I mean, because people will come and they'll just say right back to me, they'll go, but you love this guy because of X, Y, and Z. You just said it. And I'm like, dang it. But
Mike, what's your superpower?
I've always felt solid about. We talk about taking the quarterback late in the drafts, and I feel like once the draft season really comes around, have done well identifying not just a late quarterback, but a late quarterback that turns into an every week startable QB1, and that's been highly beneficial for my teams that I can not worry about that position. We had a draft in our league of record where this is a couple years back, and I'm waiting on quarterback, and I'm waiting, and it's now gotten to the point where half of the draft room is on razzing me. They're like, Mike doesn't have a quarterback yet.
A lot of the teams now have 2 quarterbacks.
Yeah,
I remember that.
People have begun spite drafting, just grabbing quarterbacks that they don't need
to ruin you.
Yeah, to ruin me. And then I go. I end up. I think I took Ben Roethlisberger. This is before he had turned into fantasy Ben Roethlisberger. I'm like, oh, okay, I'll take him. And then before week 1, I'm like, I'm just going to grab Carson Palmer off the waiver wire. And that single move led me to a week 1 victory and many, many more victories. So it was just.
So we'll call that late round discernment as your
Yeah.
superpower. Very nice.
Yeah,
Jason?
it's for me. It's certainly not trading. I feel like I'm on trade tilt right now from last year, grabbing Greg Olsen at the wrong time and Fitz. I feel like it's the draft season, and overall. This is why I love best ball leagues. I say all the time, you don't win the fantasy championship at the draft because you don't, but you do in best ball leagues. So this is the season where I think coming out of drafts, if I don't make any moves and nobody else makes any moves, I'm usually happy with how that turns out.
Yeah, you're. I would say you're a fairly meticulous person when you've set your sight on, digging deep on something, and that bodes well for your pre-draft, draft rankings, things like that. All right, Brooks, do you have a superpower over there? Not really.
Nah.
No radioactive.
Keeping us going.
No radioactive
Brooks
spiders.
is our Jimmy Olsen.
Okay, all right. Our April O'Neil.
Oh, I like that better. Yes.
All right, let's get into the news.
News and notes from around the league.
Man, names you haven't said in 20 years for 1,000, please. April O'Neil.
Well, to be fair, Paul.
You just called Brooks Paul, as in Paul Giamatti.
I was going to say Brooks has been upgraded from Paul Giamatti to Megan Fox. So,
oh,
you went Megan Fox. I'm thinking old school.
You're saying for the
you're going
I don't know the actress's
cartoon.
There you go.
All right, into the news, guys. Jordan Reed. Jordan Reed saw a specialist for his toe injury on Wednesday without a timetable for return. Jay Gruden still says Jordan Reed is day-to-day, but intimated that it was more like week-to-week.
If this is turf,
which could turn into month-to-month.
If this is turf toe,
are you going to throw up a little bit?
It will be concerned because turf toe at the beginning of the season, it never works out well.
And remember Jordan Reed trying to play through the shoulder injury?
Yeah.
It's disappointing, especially on the heels of Ebron being Ebron. Now you've got Reed, not traditionally a fast healer, somebody who's had problems.
That's my big issue with this. It's the same for me with Tyler Eifert. It's not so much
he's healthy.
Yeah, sure, right now. But my point is, it's not so much my worry of them
Let
getting
me check.
injured.
He might have been hurt in the time we started
injured
the show.
again, but their ability to recover because, whether or not people are, that moniker of they're an injury risk or, they're injury prone. It's hard to prove that, when you look at a very large sample over all the different players, but you do have a case of people who have a difficulty coming back from injuries and, whether they're slow healers or whatever it is. I worry with this.
Do you move him down your rankings based on this news? If you're drafting, drafts are going to be happening more and more often in the next couple of weeks.
If I'm drafting
if
right
you're drafting
now,
today,
yes.
do you move Jordan Reed down?
If I'm drafting today, I do because I don't have the knowledge. I'm not moving him down.
I'm not moving him down in my rankings yet.
All right, Jamison Crowder has been banged up, hamstring injury. It is the season of hamstring injuries. He's missed the last 3 practices. This is probably why no Jordan Reed out there, no Jamison Crowder. This is why
you're seeing a lot of
TP11 can show off.
Yeah, and Docs.
Yeah,
and Ryan Grant.
Yeah. Why you just don't want that
because
hypeless character to come into the fantasy fold?
Because Josh Doxson is very talented, and I want to see him get an opportunity. And I would hate to see that opportunity be wiped away by a guy named Ryan Grant.
Jordan Reed or Greg Olsen if you draft today?
If I was drafting
They're
today,
about the same place in the
I would
draft.
take Greg Olsen.
All right, Jay Ajayi sustained a concussion. He's going to miss a week. Talked about Jamison Crowder. Sean McVay has raved about Todd Gurley as a pass catcher, expressed desire to get him more opportunities there. Reports from camp, lining up as a wide receiver, catching the ball on DBs. On linebackers. So you buy into any of the passing game hype with Gurley? Does that raise his floor if at least they're committing to staying with him in the pass game? Because there was concern. You were concerned.
Yes.
They bring in Lance Dunbar. Dunbar's now hurt. And then McVay reinforces the passing game role for Gurley. That has to be good.
Yeah, of course. If you're catching passes as a running back, that raises your floor. And it would be great to see him get more than last year. But as we were talking about before the show, if he gets the amount of receptions he got last year, then that's great because I trust Sean McVay to do wiser things in the offense.
You're going to get him in space more and get him better targets versus just running the same play over and over.
You're playing 21st century football instead of like 1983 football.
I am super, super curious. The Sean McVay trial here this year of that coach that I am older than, which is, he is so young. And when I watch, I tweeted out the other day that the more
Sean McVay did not own a Nintendo.
Yeah, the more I look into the Rams, the more I realize they're really bad. Part of that was because of Sean McVay. Watching him coach.
Breaking news.
Watching him coach, I was really concerned with maybe this will work. Maybe this will motivate people. He's high energy. He's young. He's motivated. But he looked like a position coach, and it's like, well, you're the head coach. You have to lead this team and do all these other things, and he's taking on the offensive coordinator role.
Sean McVay still gets carded.
Of course, Jason Moore puts Sean McVay on blast after putting Jeff Fisher on blast.
Well, you swing the pendulum too far. There is a good middle ground.
This is quite an indictment of a coach that you've yet to see coach a regular season game.
I'm not. I guess I am indicting him a little bit, but it's more of a curiosity. I'm really. I think it will not work out well, but I'm just.
I believe you said
curious.
that they're very bad because of Sean McVay. I
No,
believe that was the actual.
They
quote.
are very bad, but part of it was watching and me not believing.
Okay.
That method will.
It's
going to
be an uphill battle for them, for sure. All right, Sterling Shepard. I hadn't seen this news
Is
until
this-
just now. Is
It's
this
about 20 minutes ago? on
20
Twitter.
minutes ago?
No.
Wow. Sterling Shepard on the sideline in serious pain, taken off on a cart in tears.
What? Where?
That
So there,
stinks.
by the time you hear this, maybe there'll be more information. This just came through. It's very disappointing. Sad news for Sterling Shepard if he is indeed seriously injured. I mean, turning that news to fantasy, Evan Ingram comes to mind as a beneficiary of Sterling Shepard if he's hurt.
Brandon Marshall as well. I mean, we're talking NFC East today, so
Yeah,
we're
that is-
prepared to talk on
There's
Sterling
my
Shepard.
5 hours of Shepard research, guys.
Yeah, and Eli Manning. I think this would be a slight bump down to Eli Manning, who I've been rising on, but a slight bump up for Brandon Marshall. Part of my worry for Brandon Marshall has always been targets, because I don't think Sterling Shepard is going away or being uninvolved. If this is a serious injury, Brandon Marshall will rise up my rankings.
I was just going to say I wouldn't adjust Eli at all. I don't think having Sterling Shepard,
What, did he have like 8 or 9 touchdowns?
Yeah, but you have Brandon Marshall and Evan Ingram now.
Okay.
This is a big adjustment.
Well,
there.
what I'm adjusting is I
He
had
was talking
just
about moving him
recently
up.
moved Eli Manning up because I think their team is so much better offensively than it looked going into last year.
Yeah.
But now it wouldn't be.
Also, I just want to
That's disappointing for.
just want to throw out there that now the Bay Area reports
I was going to bring that up too.
Carlos Hyde appears set as the starting running back for the 49ers.
Yeah.
So stop.
Stop who?
Stop with all of the news craziness on.
Yes.
Well, they said Joe Williams got off to a real slow start too. So it's been definitely 100% trending the right direction for Carlos Hyde this season until he's hurt.
Yeah, I looked at Carlos Hyde
That's
yesterday and Hightower in my rankings, and I was very happy. I moved Carlos Hyde was, I think, my running back 14. I think that's about where he belongs.
All right, we are going to jump right into the NFC East preview. Before we do that, I want to thank the sponsor of today's show, keeping this podcast going, and that's Harry's, longtime sponsor of the show. Absolutely love Harry's. I've been a Harry's user, the Harry's Razor product, for a very, very long time. Comfortable shave, the closeness of the shave, comfortable glide. All their products are high quality. And look, $2 a blade compared to $4 when you go pay at the drugstore. They are so confident. Harry's is so confident you're going to love their blades as well. They're giving you their trial set for free.
It's a good deal.
You just cover the shipping. The free trial set includes a weighted ergonomic razor handle, 5 precision engineered blades with a lubricating strip and trimmer blade, rich lathering shave gel, and a travel blade cover. That's a $13 value. You get to try that out. So stop messing around and get started shaving with Harry's today by claiming your free trial offer. That's a $13 value for free. Just cover the shipping. And to get that free trial set, that includes that razor handle, 5-blade cartridge, shave gel, go to harrys.com/footballers. Right now, that's harrys.com/footballers. So thanks to Harry's for supporting the podcast. Let's get divisional.
Let's get divisional.
Such a bittersweet time of year, isn't it?
Dude, I'm trying to recover. That Sterling Shepard news has me bummed out, man.
And it's just so strange because when all of these things happen, the injuries, we get talking about Jordan Reed or Eric Ebron, and players are moving around the rankings, obviously. If Shepard's seriously hurt, he's going to be out of the rankings. And yet there's like opportunity that comes out of injury in the fantasy world.
Like a
players
phoenix.
can step up, and it's inevitable. It's just a part of, it's a part of what football is.
Yep.
Injuries. So let's start out with the 13-3 Dallas Cowboys. We're talking NFC East. This team last year surprised everybody. Dak Prescott, now the face of the franchise. They've added Ronnie Hillman this offseason, which brought a lot of question marks with the Ezekiel Elliott potential suspension.
Still no news.
Still no news. Here's something that I wanted to bring up about the Ezekiel Elliott suspension, because some people brought it up on Twitter. Now, if Zeke is suspended, as far as I know, and Mike, if you can correct me if I'm wrong, but he has every right, if he and the NFLPA want to appeal a suspension, he would then be permitted to play indefinitely until that suspension
that was what
heard.
I had talked about, kind of the first time we brought this up. It's like, what do you do? Because how long will the suspension be? He can push the suspension back, and sometimes it ends up getting pushed back an entire season. Sometimes, in the case of like Lane Johnson, he pushes, but then halfway through the season, then he has to serve it.
I think it would be
just very confusing.
Honestly, I would prefer if it's a 3-game suspension for him to just take it and to have me draft him, because what you had with Brady, with him appealing his suspension,
Brady pushed his.
There were court cases that kind of helped push that far into the future and into the off season. Whereas I think if he appeals his case, the verdict will come down mid-season, and that's a scary proposition, because what happens if his appeal comes and now it comes in the middle of the season for 4 games and he's out the fantasy playoffs? And I would much rather hate that than.
Of course we would, but he wants to try and remove it altogether.
No, I don't think he would. And this is what my point was. For fantasy owners, the only case that I see an appeal happening is if it's a very long-term suspension, 8 to 10 games. If it's a 2, 3, 4-game suspension, Ezekiel Elliott will take responsibility for his actions. He'll take the suspension. They'll knock it out at the beginning of the year. Obviously, the team is making some contingency plans. They haven't moved Alfred Morris. They still have Run DMC, and they brought in Ronnie Hillman. The only situation that I see him really appealing is if it's long-term, because it's not going to work to his benefit and future disciplinary concerns with the NFL if he doesn't take responsibility and take a 2-game suspension on the chin. So I think if it's short, he'll take it. If it's long, I think that's the only situation
and we've talked about what do you do for these suspensions, but since we're on the Dallas Cowboys, we have to say it again. I have been moving more in the direction of if it is a if it's a 3-game suspension, I don't think I'm going to move him. I think I'm going to keep him at the 3rd spot and draft him. When we look at last year, the top 5 running backs, only 2 of them played 16 games. You had Melvin Gordon. He finished as, depending on what scoring format, the 7 or 8 running back. He only played 13 games. If you combine Zeke with the replacement you're going to play, you're probably going to end up with a great running back that's a true difference.
I was going to point out that between games 3 and 15 for Ezekiel Elliott, because it started a little slow for Elliott, if you recall. It's hard to remember that his first week. The first week and second week was slower, especially compared to what else he did, and he didn't play the final week of the season. But so games 3 through 15, 1,500 rushing yards.
That's pretty good.
I mean, so that's in 13 games, he put up 1,500 rushing yards.
And no duds the whole year. Other than the game he missed, top 24 every single week. The interesting thing about Ezekiel Elliott is there's upside, and there's room for him to be utilized in the passing game. He caught 32 of 40 targets last year for only 363 yards. That doesn't put him anywhere in the stratosphere of David Johnson and Lev Bell in terms of passing game usage, yet he was still such a dominant fantasy force. I don't think anybody can argue with the talent, the ability. Now, Pro Football Focus has their offensive line ranked 9th as of right now. Last year
they lost some pieces.
They lost some pieces. Do we need to worry about that at all? Does Zeke mask some of that?
Yeah, he does, and I mean, like their stalwarts are still there, so yeah. I'm not. At least I'm talking like in the middle of their offensive line. So I'm not worried about that.
I asked this question to Jason when you were out of town, Mike. When Week 6 rolls around in the NFL season, who do you think the leading rusher on the Cowboys will be at that point? Who will have the most total rushing yards?
Week 6?
In Week 6.
I think it'll be Darren McFadden.
Okay, that's what Jason said as well.
No, I did change to Zeke at the end. During that, I said McFadden at first, and then I thought even if it's 3-game suspension, it'll clearly be Zeke.
All right, this is an interesting team fantasy-wise because, the core narratives haven't really changed a lot on this team. I do want to talk about Dak Prescott because he was crazy solid. He had some of these mind-blowing, impressive games, 32 for 36 against Tampa for 279 yards. Mind you, he didn't throw any touchdowns in that game.
Right.
But he was a QB1 62% of the time last year, which, by the way, that's the same as Drew Brees. So he was a QB1, the exact same percentage as Drew Brees. I would call him steady but not prolific.
Right.
Yeah, that's perfect.
And, he was only a wide receiver or a quarterback 1 through 6. He only did that 18% of the time. Yeah, so Carson Palmer had more weeks in the top 6 than Dak Prescott did. But he had a 10-week span with 8 top 12 weeks. which is incredible. And the question is, another year in the system, everything you hear is so positive about him as the face of the franchise, working hard. Is the ceiling? Have we yet to see the ceiling with him?
We have yet to see the ceiling. Another thing you have to factor with the Cowboys, their secondary was hit with a lawnmower this offseason. It was just shredded to pieces. I mean, they were already a little rough in that department, and things just got worse. So can the new pieces they plug in work? Because the game scripts may flip that they have to rely on Dak a little bit more.
Does that really help Dak, though? If 4 interceptions last year, crazy low number. You increase those pass attempts. I mean, if you look at the wide receivers, they were only targeted 18 times a game last season, which was almost dead last in football. So does it help Dak to put him in a position where efficiency might not be as easy to come by?
I don't think it helps him, in an NFL level. And when you talk fantasy, what you would see is you would probably end up seeing more of those, a little bit more volatility, where he does get in the top 5.
That's what I mean.
Where he has the opportunity to have to throw 3 touchdowns in a game, but his interceptions will certainly go up if the game script is not as always being in a position of leading. People are so worried, though. If you look at his ADP, people don't buy that Dak Prescott is a great fantasy quarterback. And I just, since 2000, the top 10 rookie quarterback years for fantasy, here's the names. There's only one bad name. You got Cam Newton, who's been a fantasy asset. Robert Griffin, he fell off after his next year, which he got injured that next year. Then Dak, Andrew Luck, Jameis Winston, Russell Wilson, Andy Dalton, Marcus Mariota, Matt Ryan. Those are all great NFL quarterbacks, all great fantasy quarterbacks. Dak Prescott will repeat as a good fantasy quarterback, and where he's being drafted right now, he is, to me, one of the better values in the draft.
Yeah, all right, last Dallas question before we talk Giants some more. Any surprises, any fantasy offensive surprises that you expect in Dallas? I mean, you have Witt and you have Terrence Williams. Those guys, you kind of have seen what they are. Is there anybody else that you think fantasy owners should be aware of?
I worry about Dez.
Well, that's why I wanted to bring up about Dez. And I know you're going to bring up the matchups, and it's hard to –
It's a rough year in terms of cornerback matchups.
It's hard to argue against that, and Scott Barrett from Pro Football Focus did a tremendous study on how Dez Bryant, when he goes off in fantasy, he's playing a lower-level competition of defensive back, and when he plays high-level guys like Josh Norman, who he plays twice – and there's also there's a laundry list of high level.
I can read it to you. Yeah, Mike
through.
Tagliari had this great find in his article on Dez Bryant. He said it's a concern because Cowboys' schedule, he has shut down cornerbacks Janoris Jenkins twice, Josh Norman twice, Aqib Talib and Chris Harris with the Broncos, Patrick Peterson, Marcus Peters, Desmond Trufant, Jason Verrett, and Casey Hayward, and Richard Sherman. I mean, he has –
that's a gauntlet.
That is a gauntlet. And to start the year, I think his first 3 games are like Arizona, Denver, and
Giants is first game.
Yeah, and the Giants.
So,
That's just not looking good.
So and then you have what I said before, 18 targets to the wide receivers a game, one of the lowest numbers in the league.
But Dez Bryant from week 2 on last year, now he missed a couple from injury. In 9 of 11 games, he either gave you 70 yards or a touchdown or both. So he was fine. He had 8 touchdowns in 11 weeks. He is a good player, so I'm not overemphasizing. We always talk about strength of schedule. Don't freak out from strength of schedule. I'm not going to do that for Dez Bryant, who is an elite wide receiver. I'm not going to take him in the
grimace at all dragging him into your wide receiver 1 spot?
Probably, but if he's my wide receiver 1, the way that the draft looks this year, that means my RB1's really good.
Yeah.
So, he's either your 2 or you have a stud running back. I like Dez, and I think that he's going to have a very solid year.
All right, let's talk about the Giants. We were talking about Sterling Shepard and the unfortunate news we saw this morning that he was carted off the practice field. We don't have any other information on Shepard. Now, the reality is the New York Giants, according to all reports, went out on June 10th. They've just been in 2 tight end sets a lot more often anyway. A lot of the opinion with Brandon Marshall coming in and the 2 tight end sets was that Sterling Shepard was going to have a very hard time repeating his rookie year. I agreed with those reports. Now you have even more incentive for this team to run in 2 tight end sets with Marshall and Odell Beckham Jr. on the outside, Evan Ingram, their first-round pick, a pass-catching weapon. This may be an opportunity for him to increase the target share. Let's talk about the Giants. What are the fantasy kind of headlines for the Giants this season? Because I think everybody sees the offense and wants to project big things for them, but we've been there before. We've been on that Philadelphia Eagles offense that everybody projected huge things for. Last year, the tight end stunk. This year, Evan Ingram's in there. What do you think, Mike?
I think that you got to look at Eli Manning. And in 2000 –
Don't make me look.
Dude, the worst part of Eli Manning is when he actually looks back at you. That's far worse. But in 2016, he was a quarterback 25% of the time, which is pretty stinky. I mean, that's not helping you. But 26 touchdowns. 2015, he was a quarterback 50% of the time with 35 touchdowns. 2014, 43% of the time. I mean, the question to me really is Eli Manning done? Because he looked pretty done a lot of the time last year, just playing extremely scared, inaccurate. So is Eli done, or was it just
what do you think?
A bad year? I think that he's got enough left to have another solid year. Now, I'm not projecting him as a quarterback 1, but it's just a reminder for people that it's not ancient history when Eli Manning was rounding into shape as a really good fantasy quarterback.
The thing is Matthew Stafford is going just ahead of him in drafts right now. Tyrod Taylor and Andy Dalton, players I like more than Eli Manning, are both going behind him in drafts. He's an 11th round pick. I would love, to ask you the question of, is he kind of a sleeper quarterback pickup? Maybe he is in a 2-quarterback league, but I don't want to take him over any of those.
No, not in the draft. But as the season goes on, if you see something very positive for Eli Manning, I'm not going to be quick to just throw a blanket over that and say, oh, it's just a couple weeks. Eli was solid for fantasy just 2 years ago.
Yeah, and while their defense has
they have Marshall now too. Touchdown weapons.
That's a great upgrade to their offense, and their defense has gotten better, which slows the game down, and that's part of why the Giants didn't score as much.
But they can't run.
But exactly, they can't run the ball as far as grinding the clock out, and that means there's more opportunity. 2 years ago, the Giants scored 380 points. Last year, 2 seasons ago, they scored 420. So they're averaging 400. And then in 2016, they come out and only score 310 points as a team. They were near the bottom of the league. This is not an offense and not a team that anyone would say this is near the bottom of the league in offense. So that says that there should be a regression to the mean where even if, they're not, scoring 420 points, I think they'll be back in that 380 range, which is a lot of extra production going somewhere. I think Brandon Marshall, if Sterling Shepard is out, I came here prepared to talk about, as I've spoken before this offseason, Brandon Marshall is really capped because of total targets in that offense. But that governor on his miles per hour is about to come off for me if the injury is long term. I really do see a major change there.
Let me put you on the spot with that then, since we're just hearing this news about Shepard and what you're saying there about Marshall's upside. Right now in drafts, he's kind of tossed in with the world of wide receiver 2s and slot receivers. He's right next to Landry and Julian Edelman, Michael Crabtree. Would you be willing to elevate Marshall ahead of guys like Edelman and Landry based on this news?
No, I wouldn't go that far.
So he's sitting kind of where he should. Maybe you would have said he's overdrafted before.
That's exactly right. And the problem is he will probably move up in ADP beyond where he should now. I feel like where he was going is where he should.
Quick aside, Martavis Bryant is at 410.
Yeah.
10th pick of the 4th round. Martavis Bryant is being drafted ahead of all those guys I just said.
Wow.
And right behind Devontae Adams and Tyreek Hill. So he is
also not
ahead of Crabtree, ahead of Landry.
Yeah.
There was a news report this morning about Martavis and frustration from the Pittsburgh side that the league has dragged their feet.
They have.
Yeah, they seem to do that. It's a consistent theme.
Yeah. So I just want to throw out, just Evan Ingram is a possible boost if Shepard is going to miss time. And Dwayne Harris would likely be the next man up, in my assumption.
As the 3?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or is like a possible guy to run out of the slot. I'm just saying, if there's another pass catcher who's going to benefit from playing time.
They need Victor Cruz back.
No.
Once Cruz gets dropped by Chicago here. No. All right, let's move on. Let's talk about
you got to talk about Smash Jackson at least a little bit.
Yeah, let's talk about the running backs in New York, because Jackson, to me, Smash Jackson, that is.
Paul Perkins,
it's a volume.
Yes.
It's a volume
for sure.
play for me. We've seen him on the field, and he can be very explosive, but he's not a between the tackles type of runner in my opinion. He's also not one that can sustain 270 carries. He needs to get some fantasy value out of the passing game and from just being on the field. I'm not expecting much to change with this offense in terms of the running game this year. I just expect Perkins to have enough carries to be running back 2 relevant.
That's fair. Last year, the Giants running backs were 5th worst in the league, 3.7 yards per carry. However, they were 11th in the league in running back targets. But as we mentioned, I think yesterday, that Shane Vereen is still there. Shane Vereen is still an excellent pass-catching running back with or without his bicep, which seems to keep removing itself from his body. So will Perkins get enough play in the passing game? Or
we debated Perkins and Snack Jackson, Eddie Lacy.
Smash and snack.
On Twitter, Lacy won the vote on Jason's Twitter.
Yeah, because we rebranded him.
On SleeperBot, in our SleeperBot channel, which you can check out in the SleeperBot app, Paul Perkins won.
Well,
so,
yeah, because
he was Eddie Lacy. He wasn't Snack. He wasn't Snack Jackson.
So it's all about the nickname.
Yes, it is.
Ah, great. All right,
I will say this: the last 4 games that Perkins played in, where only one of those was he's a starter.
Right.
He was pacing over 1,000 yards, but he's not a touchdown guy, and that's my big worry. He had no touchdowns last season, and when I watch,
neither did Melvin Gordon his rookie year.
Fair enough,
Jason.
But when I watch Perkins, that is my biggest worry. I wonder, he doesn't strike me as a goal line type of back, and Orleans Darkwa is there, gets forgotten, and Shane Vereen. Look, we talk a lot about Duke Johnson's a good pick late in the draft if you're in a PPR. Theo Riddick is always a value if you're in a PPR. But Shane Vereen is forgotten,
yes,
and he should not be. If those other guys are gone and you're at the back of your draft and your running back core is weak and you're in a PPR, so several qualifiers, but he will be a guy you can throw in your lineup as a flex play who can get 6-7 catches a game.
Yeah, I just remember seeing Shane Vereen on the waiver wire. He was just a streamable waiver wire running back. I just don't know, coming off of injury, why that would change. I wouldn't really invest a pick in him, I guess. So I disagree with you on that.
Yeah, obviously last year, like you said, coming off of injury, he was injured. But the year before, he had 59 receptions, and he is a capable receiving back.
PPR.
Yeah,
all right.
Only PPR.
Let's talk about the Washington Redskins. I think this is one of the more interesting teams to discuss because you have kind of this, at least myself and Mike, I think Jason's on board there too, where I think we understand that this offense is going to be pretty good. They were second in passing yards per game last season, and yet we lose Pierre Garçon, we lose Deshaun Jackson. We had Rob Kelly. Now we bring in Samaje Perine.
Rob Kelly's still there.
Yeah. Well, I just meant in addition to.
Okay.
And you have Jordan Reed banged up. And so I think fantasy production will abound from this offense. And yet, figuring out exactly which players that is the challenge for fantasy owners. So I want to help them with that right now. Let's start at the running back position and talk about Robert Kelly, a player who was impressive, very impressive at times last year. And yet they bring in Samaje Perine, and a lot of the fantasy football circles believe that Samaje Perine will take over as the starting running back at some point this year. So I want to see if you buy into that narrative or if you think Perine's presence will simply make this a very difficult situation to start a guy from.
I think it's Rob Kelly's job to start, and what Rob Kelly's what his strongest asset last year was that he just was dependable, and he's not. It's not going to lose yards. He's not going to fumble the ball, and Jay Gruden had gotten so fed up with Matt Jones, who, I mean, for all the grief I give Matt Jones, he's probably the better running back, but he can't hold on to the football, and that cost him his job.
One of the top things that a running back can do is hold the ball.
just saying, like, they got to the point where they said, okay, we just want someone who's not going to fumble the ball, and Rob Kelly's there. He's getting actual time as the starter. You know, he's getting the first. I assume getting the first team reps. I guess I haven't really read into that of the training camp reports, but there's just no reason for me to believe that a 4th round pick is going to steal the job on week 1. By the end of the year, probably, because I have Samaje. I am a huge Samaje Perine fan. I think that the Pain Bot will be incredible for fantasy football once he takes the job, but it's not going to be right away, and that's how the draft is unfolding. Fantasy drafts, players are saying Samaje Perine is going to be the week 1 starter, and
look,
Rob Kelly is not.
We have to make a judgment call now in early August for the listener in terms of how we think that'll play out. I mean, I think you kind of acknowledged the reality that Perine has an opportunity to take this job, but Kelly ended the year, last 6 games, 3.23 a carry. That was kind of the issue with Robert Kelly.
Yes.
And he's projected to start over Perine, but so is, Spencer Ware's projected to start over Kareem Hunt, and there are a lot of those situations. So how do you draft them?
Yes, exactly. Samaje Perine is last year's Jordan Howard. And when you hear that, you might go, oh, so I need to draft him. No. Nobody who drafted Jordan Howard last year is happy right now because they didn't keep him. They didn't roster
You're saying
him for
they
those.
Dropped him.
They dropped him. They're pissed that they drafted him and dropped him. So if next year you want to be the guy that's like, oh, I drafted Samaje, but I didn't get any of the juice out of him. I don't think he's going to be involved enough in the first 3 weeks to actually stay on fantasy rosters. Someone might hold on to him. You might miss out. Maybe you want to be if you got a deep bench. If you're rocking 8 guys on your bench, then draft Samaje and hold on to him because I do think there's a legitimate chance he takes over. He is the more talented back. I don't think that is up for debate.
They've already said, look, he'll start. Kelly will probably start, but they're going to be a hot hand type of backfield. And you still have Chris Thompson coming in on 3rd downs. Let's not forget that.
And so I just want to this example. It's not a full-on apples to apples, but because Samaje Perine is not David Johnson, but go back to David Johnson's rookie year, right? The starting running back was Andre Ellington.
Oh, that's right.
And then Ellington got hurt. I mean, but my point was in drafts, people were drafting Andre Ellington and David Johnson. Chris Johnson was not drafted according to Fantasy Football Calculator's ADP, but he was the veteran. So it's just
so you're saying Matt Jones will come in?
No,
you do that?
I'm saying Jay Gruden is one of those coaches to me that will give it to the veteran, even though Rob Kelly's not a longtime veteran.
So in the draft, I would rather have Rob Kelly.
Yes.
At the end of the year, I do think Samaje is better. So it depends on the type of league you're playing in. Best ball, Samaje. Redraft, home leagues, I would go Rob Kelly and make moves as the year goes on. The passing game is really what's tantalizing, though.
Yeah, Kirk Cousins. Right now we have Kirk Cousins ranked. Mike and I have him number 7. The number 7 quarterback. Jason has him at 12. Now, Mike.
Inappropriate.
Begs the question, if Jordan Reed misses time, how does that impact Kirk Cousins' efficiency, his ability to produce like a top 10 quarterback? Would you move him down if you found out Reed was going to be out a prolonged amount of time?
Maybe to 8.
Really? You're just bullish.
Yes, I think that he is a good quarterback, and he was missing Jordan Reed for a large portion of last year. He's always missing Jordan Reed. I mean, he's better when Jordan Reed's on the field, no doubt about it, but he figures out a way to get it done, and Terrell Pryor is a new athletic freak weapon for him to use, and I don't see a reason to move him down with what they have done to add pieces in the passing game, along with with Crowder.
Matt Ryan, Tom Brady, and then Kirk Cousins. If you look at most yards per attempt last season, 8.1 per attempt. Pretty impressive, 4,900-plus yards.
I mean, we saw the Terrell Pryor training camp catch, guys.
Oh, it's over. Yeah, it's over.
I just moved Cousins, quarterback 3.
Now, Mike, you've been slow, though. Despite your bullishness on Kirk Cousins, you've been slow to adopt Jamison Crowder as a high-upside, high-reception type of player in the draft. Do you not like his draft spot? Is that the problem, or do you not buy into the fact that, Jamison Crowder can be a 100-catch guy in this offense?
Yeah,
he's being drafted right around the 7th round.
The way that Cousins spreads the ball around, I just don't buy into Jamison Crowder getting enough targets to be that 100-reception guy. And what was it last year? He had around 65 receptions. I don't have it right in front of me, but that's a huge leap to go from under 70 to all of a sudden over 90 receptions. And
he was 67 for 847 and 7.
Okay, I don't see him taking a leap of 20 receptions, over 20 receptions.
And so I think the way that you see it, correct me if I'm wrong, is you would rather, if guys on that team are going to be in the 70 reception range, the 65 to 70 reception range, you'd rather go with more of a deep threat type, that Deshaun Jackson, so the Josh Doxson, Terrell Pryor, those types versus the guy that's usually out of the slot.
And I'm not buying into Crowder's touchdowns from last year being something that he's going to repeat.
Julian Edelman or Jamison Crowder?
Edelman.
Golden Tate or Jamison Crowder?
Edelman.
No,
I just love Edelman.
Oh,
you're picking Edelman.
When you're picking Edelman, he's not in this.
I said Tate or Crowder, and you said Edelman.
Julian Edelman.
Where did I hear Edelman?
From the earlier question.
Well, then I pick him then.
You pick him for the earlier question.
A little bit slow on the uptake.
You already had.
Jason, I thought you were wide awake.
This is me being wide awake. This is the best you're going to get. This is still an upgrade.
All right, Jason. Jamison Crowder or Dante Moncrief?
Edelman.
Yeah, definitely Edelman. Dante Moncrief or Crowder, I would go Moncrief, assuming luck is there.
Okay. Yeah, I'd go Moncrief in a standard, I think. I think I'd take Crowder in the other two formats.
That's fair.
All right, let's talk about Carson Wentz. Let's talk about the Philadelphia Eagles.
The tone of your voice is disparaging.
I'm sorry. I actually like Carson Wentz. I just don't like the level of Philadelphia hype that surrounds him. You go and you look at the stats. I tweeted this out a while ago. One of the worst passer ratings in the league on third down. And if you go look at who has the best, it's all of the stalwarts. It's Rodgers, it's Breeze, it's Ryan, it's Brady. So I'm just not ready to anoint him. But I don't think that it's his responsibility to be anointable in year 2 is my point. I just think the fans have overreacted. I think that trickles down into fantasy football. You look at Eli Manning versus Carson Wentz. They're basically back-to-back at the quarterback position in drafts.
Oh, that's
now Jason is grimacing in a strange way. Do you have something about Carson Wentz you want to share? Obviously, the weapons. Look, let's lay the land out. Alshon Jeffrey arrives. Torrey Smith arrives. LeGarrette Blount arrives. We expect Ryan Matthews to be out the door, but this is a much better, well-equipped wide receiver core for Carson Wentz. I'm not saying that ascension isn't inevitable, but I'm not ready to give him that top 15 spot.
I completely agree.
Yeah, we have to predict based on,
You can project growth.
Yeah, you project growth, but you predict a lot based on history, what we know, avoiding risk, and what is the real upside. So I agree in a draft that, if I'm on the clock and it's between the guys going back-to-back Andy Dalton and Carson Wentz, I love Andy Dalton. I'm taking him 100 out of 100 times. That being said, I think Carson Wentz does take a significant step forward. What he showed me in his rookie year was very good. I skipped over his name since 2000, top quarterback fantasy performances. He was actually above some of those names. I didn't read him because we didn't have a second year yet. He's good with bad weapons, and now he gets great weapons.
His
or
weapons
at least
were
much, much better.
An embarrassment.
Yeah,
last year. His
Nelson
wide receiver.
Aguilar
That's exactly how I refer to Jordan Matthews on average. Normally.
Jordan
Matthews. What are you talking about?
Jordan Matthews is a good wide receiver.
That's so ridiculous.
Nelson Aguilar is a bad wide receiver.
Yeah, you want to call? I was going to call him Darius Hayward-Bay. Dorial Green Beckham. You want to call him bad? Fine. But Jordan Matthews has gotten better. He got better his first year, his second year.
He's dry toast.
So, okay, so
He's just above a Jag.
1,000 yards and 8 touchdowns.
Anybody can do that now.
Yeah, they can. They certainly can. I mean,
All right,
so ridiculous.
So how
I'm
does
just being inflammatory.
I know.
how do the wide receivers then? If Carson Wentz takes a step forward, but he's not a superstar, does he have enough with Jordan Matthews there, with Zach Ertz there? Torrey Smith probably will be irrelevant. Will there be enough left with whatever Carson Wentz steps forward to produce a wide receiver 1 or let's say top 15?
Sure.
In Alshon Jeffrey.
Because Alshon Jeffrey has enough talent, ability, and a big enough paycheck and body to do it. I mean, he's done it before. He can be a go-to guy. This offense was, pretty efficient at times last year. They obviously leaned on the running game. They were 11th in the league in rushing yards per game. They need to take a step up, but I think that Alshon Jeffrey can be a top 15 wide receiver in this offense. He just has to stay healthy, and that's not a guarantee.
Yeah, he's dominant when he's on the field, and even last year when he was actually on the field, he is dominant. So I think that he can easily be a top 15 wide receiver. You take a look at the running game. Their offensive line is currently ranked first going into the season by Pro Football Focus, and that's fine with me. They have a great offensive line. What does that say for LeGarrette Blount, who is projected to be the main running back for this team?
There is upside there with Blount, and I've been hesitant to give him
we
a lot
talk
of
about
credit.
Like Paul Perkins, volume play.
Yeah, no, it's
a team that can't run the ball, or LeGarrette Blount, volume play on a team that has a great offensive line and a coach that wants to run.
We've talked at length about the difference that Lane Johnson made when he was in the lineup to the passer rating and performance of Carson Wentz. They do have a great offensive line. They also are unlike the Giants, who are probably totally fine just throwing Eli in the shotgun and letting him throw all day long. I doubt that Philly's going to take that step. You know, we saw that with Jameis Winston a little bit from rookie year to second year. They gave a little bit more to him.
Then they quickly removed it like a vaudeville hook.
And having the ability to run the ball, having a bruiser, seeing what's happening with the sentiment around Wendell Smallwood and the other potential players that can be handed the ball. I'm certainly rising on Blount just because of the volume, like you said.
And Ryan Matthews, I believe, 8 rushing touchdowns last year.
Career high.
Thank you. But in limited work, I mean, I think LeGarrette Blount, as long as his draft price doesn't get out of control, he's going to be a great pick in the 5th, 6th round. It's not going to feel good. I promise you, it will not feel good.
No, it doesn't feel good
to draft LeGarrette Blount.
No.
But
felt good to play him last year, though.
Yeah.
I want to touch on Zach Ertz. The tight ends were targeted the most in the league by the Philadelphia Eagles, 11.6 times a game. This was
someone beat out Brock?
Yeah.
Good.
So, but it was a low explosion type of offense, only 10.8 yards per reception. That's 31st out of 32 teams.
Was there a contest? It was like Brock and Carson Wentz, like, I can throw it to my tight end 15 times a game. No, you can't.
There must have been, because Brock is really good at losing, and so he lost that. Go on, Andy.
Painful. Currently losing the quarterback competition in Cleveland as well. No, for Wentz, it was weapons mixed with a very vanilla conservative offense. They did not put Wentz in a position to hurt himself last year. So the question is with Alshon Jeffrey, are we overreacting to the potential target decrease for Ertz? Because he was great. Ertz was amazing. Ended the year over the last few weeks, by far the number 1 tight end. Same thing he's done the last couple of years, but that is a huge amount of targets going to the tight end position. Almost 12 targets a game. Can't be ignored.
No, it certainly can't be ignored. But at the same time, you do have to factor that the other guys, which I think Jordan Matthews is a good wide receiver, but the other wide receivers on the field that led to Zach Ertz being the best pass catching weapon on the team. So that's where Carson Wentz went. So I don't project that pace that Zach Ertz was on when he closed out the season, where he was just an absolute monster, the number one tight end over the last 4 or 5 games. But he's someone to keep an eye on. Where's he going in drafts?
Yeah, I was going to pull up his ADP and give you some decisions to make there, because he's an 11th round tight end. I just have him in almost every league.
Yeah.
In a basketball league,
I'm in on
Zach
that.
Ertz was my tight end in almost every league. I mean, you're talking Jack Doyle range. He's behind O.J. Howard. He's behind Kyle Rudolph, Hunter Henry.
Well, Kyle Rudolph is good, but
I would
O.J.
take Ertz
preposterous.
over Kyle Rudolph any day, and I will happily bet that one if anybody wants a water bet right here, right now.
Let me hold on. Let me just confirm where I have Mr. Zach Ertz in my rankings. Hold on. Oh man, that's
Spears got to come up by now.
that's-
The horses are upon us, Mike.
It's splitting hairs if I take that one, but I will take it.
Water bet.
I love it. Brooks, put that one down.
That's not my favorite bet
Zach
I've ever
Ertz,
made.
Kyle Rudolph, and for those that are brand new listeners to the show that are going, what the heck was that? That was a water bet, and we make many water bets during the year, and you can make many with your friends as well. We made a wheel of water that you spin, and if Mike loses this bet, which is inevitable, he will spin the wheel.
Very possible.
He will spin the wheel of water, and
Be shamed.
And we're going to record a bunch of those this year as well. So wheelofwater.com, you can grab the app. It's a free app. We just made it for fun, so you can make bets with your friends and embarrass them.
There's no way, though, that I'm letting us finish with the Eagles without bringing up the running back who was taking the offseason by storm. He was going to be a huge part of this offense, and now he is last on the depth charts. Wendell Smallwood.
I thought you were going to say something relevant, and I was going to be so proud of you, Mike.
Yeah,
I
that's
love
so irrelevant.
I love what you said, but
I'm just
it
pointing
feeds
out
into what I'm saying, which is
pointing out the off-season hype trains.
I know we're near the end, but I am not letting us move on without talking about a different running back there
Sure.
that I actually think I have a marker to move him way up my
Darren?
rankings. It's not Darren Sproles.
Who is it?
Oh, it's
It's
the new
Donnell
Sproles.
Pumphrey?
It's Donnell Pumphrey. I think we
Pronounced
are,
with an Umphrey?
Pronounced with an Umphrey. I think we are having major weightism. Look, the dude is a thimble. I get it.
Weightism is what we have against you, Jason.
Well, yeah. I mean, I deal with this every day, so I can speak to it. Okay. He's 5'9", $180. That can't work, right? I mean, that just can't work in the NFL.
Correct.
I get it.
Correct.
That can't even work.
I
in
got him
college.
down at 170.
That can't even work in college. I mean, it's just too small. Except the problem is he's one of the most prolific college producers in history.
Yes, this is
he
true.
had 349 carries his last season, over 2,000 yards and 17 touchdowns. He has a great offensive line. All of the reports have been raving about him. And so he's completely dismissed because he's 5'9" and 180 pounds. But the dude is a great running back.
4th round pick, passing weapon.
I'm saying I'm moving him way up, and he is a guy. He is a guy to me where if it turns out that he is way more involved and they're using LeGarrette Blount as that goal line third down guy, because that clearly, a $180 won't get it done when you need.
Yeah, he's not going between the tackles.
Right,
He's going in the slot. He's lining up wide. He's lining up out of the backfield.
Yeah, so I really like Donnell Pumphrey. I think we need to look at him a little bit deeper and get his name out on the show more, because I don't think we've ever really
that's
talked
fair.
about
But
Take a minute, pause, contemplate.
breathe him in.
The Humphrey.
It's easy to breathe. It doesn't
Sproles
take
is-
much. He's very tiny. Just
Sproles is still there, though.
yes, but yes, Sproles is there.
I mean,
And
they're
here's what's
basically
happened.
the same player.
And that's the narrative. The narrative is he is going to replace
I-
Darren
yeah,
Sproles
because I wrote
when
that
Darren
narrative.
Sproles leaves next year.
Yes.
Totally might happen.
Yes.
What I am saying
That's
is
chapter
I
3.
think that there is a legitimate chance that Sproles and Pumphrey are both used in different roles this year, and that Pumphrey is just a running back.
What, man, if they lined up
Sproles and Pumphrey.
Wishbone
Yeah.
with both
man.
Sproles and Pumphrey.
You can't even see him behind the line. You literally would be like, where's
Why do they
their
have 9
team?
players out there?
it'd be incredible.
Guys,
Hey.
this is going to be easy. They forgot 2 guys.
Guess what, guys? Guess what? We'll be back tomorrow.
Yeah.
On the show, the Fantasy Footballers. Hey, you want to help us out? Drop us a sweet and sexy iTunes review.
Oh, they're so sweet.
5-star review over there on iTunes. Subscribe to the show. Check us out on YouTube.
Give us that subscribe.
Yes. Was that Ladies Man?
Yes, I think it was. Unconsciously.
Unconscious Ladies Man. All right. We will be back tomorrow. We'll be back Friday, 5 days a week, here on out.
Give 'em
Excited
the,
for the season.
Give them the Listener League info one more time.
Listener League at fantasyfootballers.com. Listener League at fantasyfootballers.com.
Not at thefantasyfootball.com.
No, it's just Listener League at fantasyfootballers.com. And send in those entries, please. No paragraphs, 10 pages long, books, novels, things like that. I won't read them because I can't read.
Got a lot to do, and he can't read.
But I wanted to remind people, too, if you want to come play with us on the Draft app, if you love DFS, if you love best ball, the best place to play, it's our studio sponsor. We absolutely love these guys and love the app. Jason and I are right in the middle
That's right.
of a best ball battle right now. And you can go to playdraft.com/ballers, and you will get a free entry into a best ball league, a free paid entry into a best ball league.
I just did a live Periscope where I was playing Foot Clan and best ball yesterday.
I just took Tyreek Hill in ours. So
Goodbye.
I'm
Goodbye.
getting Humphrey in this next.
Thank you for listening
nails
to
with an
another
Humphrey.
episode of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Join our fantasy football community on jointhefoot.com and follow us on Twitter at the FF Ballers.